To you, Shaun.
Great, thanks, Roz.
Can we get the light, please?
I'm Shaun, I'm an addict.
Hi, Shaun.
And yeah, nice to be here. It's funny you saying about experience, strength and hope on long-term recovery, like it's some sort of illness, which I suppose it is just that, isn't it, really? I mean, yeah, it is good to be here in spite of the fear and trepidation I always feel around doing chairs or doing lots of stuff, really. But I mean, Serge, you know, the sort of guy I'm coming here tonight, I haven't been here before to do the chair, is me being quite sort of courageous, I suppose you could say. You know, it's me kind of pushing the bound, pushing my kind of comfort zone. So, you know, part of my head still says that's because you're pathetic, but it's not true. It's, you know, it's just my kind of who I am, basically. As I said, I mean, fear and trepidation was my earliest memories, really. And, yeah, earliest memories. And it's, I'm glad it's today, not yesterday. I was saying to John on the way here, yesterday I woke up. Usually I'd start my day prayer, meditation, excuse me, stretches and what have you. But I ended up having a bit of a disagreement with my wife, turned into a bit of a row, and I just split. Whether that's it or not, I don't listen. I've got a million things. I've got children, businesses, and a business, and all sorts of stuff that I can hang stuff on. But I just entered that stage yesterday, you know, where you feel, I don't know whether you feel, but I felt where there was nothing, you know. There was nothing left to buy, nothing left to eat, nothing, no porn to watch, no fucking bullshit to watch on Netflix, just nothing. And I thought, it's me, you know. And, but I went with that, I felt that, you know, through the day. And when I went home, I spoke to my wife on the day and apologised, I got some stuff wrong. And I said to her, there's part of me just feels like I'm dying, you know, and which, you know, we kind of spoke about that, and I think there's something in the mix where I've got some big change going on. Our daughter and one of our sons lives in Glasgow. So at some point we're going to have to start living up there a bit. I'm 64 now, and my business is starting to kind of shrink. And so maybe it was that, I don't know. Well, John was saying the other day was officially one of the miserablest days of the year, wasn't it? Blue Monday or something, they said. And but what I did, I ate some nice food, spoke to my wife, and then I went to an online meeting. And this guy just did a really sweet chair. I'm at a place now, I think, I was at a meeting on Saturday and a guy did a chair, and I just felt so, I just felt such emotion for him, you know, and empathy. And which is a good sign, because it's all about turning that stuff onto me, you know, and myself. And so I went to this meeting, and then I just, you know, afterwards my wife and I just chatting, and today feel a bit better, and now I'm here. It's a different thing. So a special welcome to any newcomers, or to you all, really. As I say to John now, I mean, I personally, I need to be kind of 12-stepped all the time, you know. I mean, I just need love, support, encouragement, the whole thing. I need to feel safe. I mean, I got introduced to NA in the mid-80s, and which is a long time ago now. And I was living in Chalk Farm, and my girlfriend at the time, we bought a flat in Chalk Farm, and then she said, if you don't stop using, I'm going to leave you. And I couldn't stop using, you know. I mean, it says in our literature, an addict is a man or woman whose life is controlled by drugs. And that's how my life was, completely and utterly controlled by drugs. Even when I wasn't actually physically using, I mean, that's all I could think about, you know. I mean, on New Year's, I had a walk with some mates on Hampstead, and an old mate of mine, long time around, and we were talking about how shrunk one's life becomes and compromised with using. And I can clearly remember, because when I started, my drug was heroin. So when I first started taking it, you chase the dragon, you know, on foil, and then you'd make a tube up, and you'd build up residue on this tube. And you know, I was forever opening it, see how much gear I got on there, and tying it up again, and it became a place where that's all I ever fucking thought about, was this tube and how much gear I was building up on it. And meanwhile, my girlfriend's left, the flat went, and so anyway, I got introduced to NA in this meeting, and as I always say, it's part of my story. I had my Mac on, my old Burberry Mac, which was a legacy of when I used to spend all my money on clothes and what have you. And I had the can of Tenants in the pocket and the foil. I'm in the rag trade, so the condensation from the Tenants eventually went through the pocket lining, so I had those replaced, you know, because I got the girls to replace them, you know. I was a bit smart. And that's the sort of dude I am, you know. And so went into this meeting. Meeting's like the building's not even there anymore. And I can't remember much, but I remember two things. I found it incredibly depressing. And you know why, I don't know why I was depressed. It was depressing, whatever. It's but there was a guy in there who's still around now, and he's a good mate of mine. And so that says something. I mean, that feels very very special to me. So yeah, so mid-80s, I wasn't ready, and then a chain of events happened. And I was back at my dad's, and my older brother was a chronic alcoholic, and he'd be in his room with BTs, and my old man was one of those functioning alcoholics. So he began at the pub for time and all that. And I was in my room, sort of, you know, and my old bedroom. Kind of just, I don't know what I was doing, just, you know, I was... You know, towards the end of my using, when I was still living in Chalk Farm, I used to do this thing where I'd do some gear in the morning, go to work, and say, right, I'm not going to use tonight. I'm gonna cluck for it. You know, and I'd get out at Camden Town and I'd have a drink in the World's End or whatever it was, and then walk down and maybe have a drink in the Hawley Arms, very strange pub in Camden back then, and it was still the old Dingwalls and that, I think, then. And then further down there was this, you know, I'm starting to get a bit looser now, you know, and there was a sort of kebab restaurant that sold booze as well, and I might have a little kebab and a couple of beers, and then it was kind of like, oh, come on, let's fucking hell, this is stupid. And you know, and that was that. And then I remember one night in there, because, you know, I was in the habit of not talking bullshit. I've never been a fan pop per se, but when I was stoned or pissed, I'd get a bit sort of, you know, I don't know what I was talking about. And then one night, this guy in there I thought was kind of friendly with me in the kebab place. I said, look, thing is, a bit short on the old reddies. Can I have a bit of tick? And he said, no. And it was like, it was just a small thing, but it really made me think, Shaun, what, you know, this is, you know, because at times things come through to you, don't they? So I'd done all lots of things, you know, begged, stolen, borrowed, and I was back at Dad's. Anyway, some things happened. I ended up in treatment in in the King's Road of all places. And the day I went down there, my brother-in-law took me down there. My poor sisters were just waiting for me to die. My brother-in-law took me down there, and there was a pub, funny enough, opposite, and he said, "Do you want a drink before you go in there?" I said, "Yeah." And I mean, when you're strung out, you know, you're just trying to force it down. And I just remember thinking there was these two girls, you know, and when we were young, going out chatting girls up and everything was all, you know, round the, you know, was all part of it. And that kind of all stopped, obviously, when I was 19. I look back now, so young. And I just thought, I felt, what I'm getting around is I felt so exiled from these two girls, and any possibility of, you know, not that I was remotely interested in having T-Rex with anyone or anything, but I just felt, it made me realise how I've been living in exile. You know, I was so isolated, and I went into this treatment place, and I was reintroduced to NA. There was a meeting opposite, and that's when it started to change. So this was 88, and but I thought, you know, I mean, alcohol was the first thing I picked up and the last thing I put down, and so I came out of there and I was kind of, I thought, yeah, I mean, clean and what have you, but, you know, letting go of booze. I mean, as my sister said, I was conceived in a sea of alcohol. My alcoholic parents and brother, and it is rife in my family. And so I was going to meetings, you know, like people maybe now, and kind of I was in that no man's land because, you know, I'd trying to let go of all my old mates. And you know what it's like growing up around a flat. You're all kind of a mesh with each other, and so I'd go there, go to the meetings, get clean tags, you know, 30 days, and then and go and have, you know, go to the pub and have some drinks. So I was with my sister, and then one night one led to another, then another, and then I went up to this kind of club we used to go to. Up in Finchley Road, you know, around the back, not the low profile, the other one. Anyway, I went in there, and and I like to say this because it does make me laugh. Of all the people in there, I mean, you know, all my old mates. I'm pissed, and I thought, all right, let's get some gear or whatever, and no one had niche, no gear, no coat. Only thing they had was amyl nitrate. And I mean, I started taking that. I mean, honestly, it was, I think that's what got me clean in the end. I just, you know, I was in a real absolute pissed and out of my nut on amyl, and it was just time to go home. I was crying. I woke my sister up. I said, look, I've got to do this kind of, you know, it's got to be total abstinence. And so I've been clean and sober ever since September 88. So it's kind of, you know, which is a miracle in its own way. And in that time, you know, I've done, you know, I've led a life, in as much as when I was about 4 years clean or whatever, I went to this party, which I didn't want to go to, obviously, I never do. How long have I got left? 5. And I saw this girl in there, and she was, you know, she had kind of Rupert the Bear trousers on, and she was on a bicycle, and it was like no one was riding bikes back then. I thought she was really cool. Anyway, so within a year we were married, and then we had our first child 9 months after. She must have conceived on our honeymoon or something. And then we went on to have another child, a boy, and then another child. And that's been a whole thing. Becoming a dad for someone like me who couldn't really take responsibility for even a relationship. In the end, they would become, I had lots of different girlfriends, but it would become too much. You know, I was trying to control the world basically, and it was just easier, and especially when, you know, gear came along. But what I wanted to just touch on with having children and what have you, it's because of the program, it's enabled me to really look at my childhood, and which was difficult. You know, there was alcoholism, domestic violence, and as a young boy, I mean, it really affected me, and a lot of this stuff I didn't even realise. And what happened, our youngest son, Ted, when he was about 13, 14, he became very unwell and suicidal, and that was a very difficult time for both myself and my wife, and we, because of the program and being very au fait with all what one needs to do, we got him into the Priory. But that particular day when I left him there, and we had to leave him in the end, and I literally, my wife was crying, and I had to sort of physically take her out of the place. It was a lesson in powerlessness and what have you, that I just, you know, it wasn't about Reddies or this or that. It was nothing, and I felt completely and utterly hopeless. And because I always came to meetings and had a network, I truly believe I was able to kind of be somewhat carried through that, you know. And then I started going to Al-Anon, and then finding a way of still living a life with that going on, you know, as we do. And my wife and I, we nearly broke up on that one, because you just view each other, you just see each other, and it's just pain, you know. I look at her, it's pain of our son. She looks at me. And but we started doing this couples counselling, and so much of it was down to me and me unpacking my childhood. And because going forward then, when he came out, he went into full-on addiction, and he went mad, you know. He was dealing, he was kidnapped and beaten up and stashing tens of thousands of pounds in our house, and I went a bit mad myself because I couldn't let him go. You know, I could not, and I learnt that who I was trying to save in some ways was him, but also that me as a little boy I couldn't face anymore. So, I mean, I can't really explain it all in a few minutes, but it was incredibly profound, that whole thing. And we're in a new dimension now. Our daughter Nancy, she's had a baby boy, and it's just kind of it's incredibly sort of magical, really, seeing her with him and my wife, and that is, you know what it's like, it's lovely. And so, but with that, there's some change going to come, and you know what we're like, we don't like change, but no. So it's been amazing, actually, just being clean and just trying to let go of stuff as much as I can. I go swimming a lot, and in the sauna afterwards, it's quite an eclectic bunch, you know, in these saunas. And I look at people and laugh tonight, because someone will say, you know, if you eat 6 oranges a day, you'll never get a cold, right? And I kind of think, well, I don't know much, but I know that colds, you know, virus and all this sort of stuff. It's not about vitamin C and oranges necessarily, but I'd say, yeah. I always say, yeah, I suppose that's true. Whereas other people will start confronting me. I kind of think, what the fuck, you know? I mean, honestly, maybe it's because they don't interact with people enough or something, but I think being in these meetings, it just kind of, you know, it kind of starts. And what I'm saying is I'm I'm constantly trying to let go of the stuff that, you know, that doesn't warrant. But it's not so I don't get tripped up with stuff periodically. But I feel I've spoken enough, Roz, have I?
20, that's right.
Yeah, bang on. So I'll I love NA and I love being clean. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks.